answer, but I got overall impressions throughout the time that I was communicating with them of certain things based on the questions that I did ask and the spotty answers that I got. But one of the things was I was curious about God and whether, we're created and if there is a God. And one of the answers or the impression that I got was that there is a God. He did say that we're of both of the same creation. He said there's two creations, an intelligent creation and a non-intelligent creation. And we, them and us, are part of the same intelligent creation. So although he didn't come out and say that, Jesus is the Lord and Savior of mankind, he did say that there was a God, basically.
So he was just telling you that there is non-intelligent creation and intelligent creation, and we are, like the extraterrestrials, we are intelligent, conscious beings, maybe, something like that?
Yeah.
We have our
and
first question coming in.
The notion that there was definitely a God and that we're all created. We're all created
to be intelligent, like whoever created us. I have a first question coming in. And the question is from a listener. Here's the question to you, Dan. How did they know to choose you for the job? And how come you didn't know you had some sort of intuitive power before it all started?
Well, as it was told to me during the initial conference that I had with the captain, he said that it was just basically a random situation. They would choose based on demographics of the mothers. They would choose people who their offspring were more likely economically to go in the military than somebody who was so basically poor women.
Right.
But they had there was two phases of the abduction program. They had the first phase where they selected the targets based on they would abduct the women and they would do testing to see if their genes were compatible with this procedure, and then they would track them, and then when they got pregnant, they would again abduct them, and it was only during a certain period of time, back in the 60s, that they did it for this program anyway, and so they would then abduct those women again when they were pregnant, and then they would do the genetic management procedure in utero, and then from there they would be born and just like normal.
When you say they, you're saying the aliens would do this?
Well, it was
we're talking alien abductions here.
It was in conjunction with the military. Obviously, it was a military / alien program, so the military knew about it as well.
What kind of aliens are we talking about here, Dan?
I have no idea. My impression is the same impression everybody else's is, which is the the popular egghead looking alien, but I have no idea what they look like.
Okay.
And then the second part of her question, I want to answer that.
Sure.
I never knew about it because it wasn't uncovered yet. I mean, it wasn't something that you just, it's not like you have a sixth finger and you discover it and go, oh, I have a sixth finger. It's not like that. So now I did have odd things happen in my life, which are written in the book, but I never really knew exactly, the basis of what they were, and maybe they had nothing to do with it. I don't know, but I definitely did not know about the intuitive communications until I actually went through the school to have it uncovered.
Okay, wow. We actually have a caller. This will be my first caller. I don't even know how this works, but this should be fun. We have a call. Are you ready for a caller, Dan?
I am. Let's go.
All right, let's do this. Hello, caller.
Hey, guys.
Hello. 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 Nice
Great
to
show,
meet you.
Guys.
Really?
Guys,
thanks.
Yeah, I think you guys were answering my question.
Was that your question?
Yeah, I think so, about how he didn't know that beforehand that he already had this intuitive
ability. Yeah.
Before he started the job.
Yeah, it wasn't uncovered until the school, so I had no clue. I mean, I've always been a very emotive and sensitive person, sensitive to other people's emotions and
me too.
Yeah, but there's plenty of people like that, so I never really correlated the two until actually after I went through the school. So
now, Dan, you did say something earlier that many people have this ability. Many people are sensitive. Do you mean that
Yes,
many
they are.
people can? Yes, they are. Well, you
Well,
have a reason for answering.
I
Or
think
asking
that,
this question.
as I said in my meeting, the initial meeting I had, he said that everybody has the ability to intuitively communicate. It's just that the human mind, it lays very, very, very dormant. I mean, to the extent of it's unreachable by the vast, vast majority of people. It's just that the people who had this genetic management procedure, it heightened that ability. I mean, many, many, many fold, so that it was easily accessible by the mind once it was trained.
Yeah, but didn't you, as a kid or in high school, try manipulating people? Like, I remember on the bus in high school trying to get people to do silly things, like thought projection.
No, I never tried.
You never played around with things like that because you could do it?
No, it never really occurred to me to do that, to say the truth.
So this caller, you're talking about kind of projecting your thoughts into someone else's mind.
Yeah, like it's all part and parcel, you know what I mean? We can all do things, and it's just how we practice it.
Well, that sounds like another show. That's interesting.
You know what I mean?
I didn't know that. I haven't manipulated anyone with my mind.
Well, I used to try all the time, but it never ever worked.
It didn't work. Oh well.
Even with the management procedure that I went through, I don't think I could do that either. But it's kind of I think it's a different part of the maybe a different part of the brain. I'm not sure.
Well, all right. Thank you, caller, for that one. We have another caller on standby.
Great.
From
Well, I'll let you get to the other caller.
Yeah, thank you so much for your call. We'll talk again.
And thank you for the show.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank the people at Epic Voyages. I am just a voice. Thank you. We have another caller.
Have a wonderful night. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Good night. We have another caller from area code 845.
Hey there, guys. Good evening. My name's David. Nice to speak with you both. Listening to the show. Hi. Good evening. I've got a question for you, Dan, about the pills that they were having you take. I'm really curious. Can you describe what those pills look like? And did you ever consider holding on to one of those pills or trying to get it analyzed? I'm just curious about that.
In retrospect, obviously, when you look at it from a third party or a distance away, you think of all these things that you could have done. But when you're in the moment and you're beholden to the military and you're patriotic and you want to do your duty and you all those things, it doesn't even occur to you to do that. And I didn't, obviously. And you know what? I don't even remember what the pill looked like. It was so long ago. But I do, based on some of the conversations I had later on, they mentioned, they referred to us humans as water vessels. And so I took that in my mind. I don't know how this evolved, but it evolved to the point where I thought that the pills somehow heightened the oxygen level in my body, because I think that their water levels are a lot less than ours. They're made more of oxygen than we are. I mean, not non-water oxygen molecules, whatever methane or whatever the other molecules that make up a biological tissue. But I always thought that maybe their oxygen level in their blood maybe is higher or something, and maybe that's what the pills did, was raise my oxygen level. I don't really know for sure. This is just conjecture on my part, but that's what I came to the conclusion of.
Also, as far as the communications that you were receiving, because you were spending time transcribing and interpreting these communications, you mentioned sort of numbers and images. I'm curious about specifics of the imagery that you were transferring.
Well, I don't remember
a little bit.
I don't remember a lot of it, but one thing I do remember is because it correlated to the news. I was given the image of a missile, a Chinese missile that had malfunctioned at a certain place on the missile, and it had exploded. on takeoff, and I was given a mental image of where it was, and so I described that in my message. I remember that because it was so odd compared to all the other ones that I would receive. But typically they would be like planes taken off, or just generic stuff. In this particular case, it actually correlated to a real world event, or at least I thought it did, because I saw it in the news the next day or two, and I thought, oh my gosh, that looks exactly like, or it seems like it was exactly like what I had just reported. And then there were other things like what I had interpreted as latitudes and longitudes on Earth, and and this is one of the major things in the book, is I thought that they were reporting to me abduction data, like residual pain levels of abductees and stuff like that. So it was just a smattering of a lot of things, but I don't remember specifics of a lot of it.
Right. So that data then, I mean, sort of what I'm understanding here is then the purpose for passing that data to you, that you were transcribing into something that presumably humans could understand, was that there was some human need to have that data as well?
I think that some of it was like that, maybe the abduction data and maybe that Chinese thing, but a lot of it was just generic imagery. And I think it was more of a training situation of keeping
right. Well, when you say generic imagery, I'm wondering what you mean by the term generic. I mean, can you be specific about the types of I mean, cows, dogs?
Yeah,
what are we
plane
talking?
Taken off for a street scene, or dogs running, or things like that. I mean, it was very just non-specific, random stuff.
And so you saw so you're saying that you saw this imagery in your mind, and then you had to sort of write it out as a textual description of what you were seeing?
Exactly. But I must emphasize that most of the stuff, I mean, the vast majority of the stuff was numbers. That's all it was. And then every once in a while I'd get an imagery-based one. So
they were just long strings of numbers, or were they groups of numbers?
No, long strings of numbers.
I guess if you want a lot more detail than we have time for, you can check out the book. The book is available at your website.
Yeah,
is that
it's
right, Dan?
aboveblack.com.
Where can people get their hands on this book?
Well, you can go to my website, and it just has links to Amazon, and you can get the ebook through the Kindle, and you can get a book from us. So it's a very, you can get it through various.
It's downloadable right to your Kindle or laptop. Because I can see how fast the time is going now, and there's just there's so much more detail I wish we could get into. But yes, thank
David,
you.
You can always email to my emails on the website aboveblack.com. So
okay, thanks, Dan.
Fantastic.
No problem.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Dave.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, you too. Great questions. I just want to remind everyone that we're listening to Inception Radio Network on Epic Voyages. You're on an epic voyage right now into the world of Dan Sherman and what he experienced. We have more questions coming in from listeners. I have another question here for you, Dan, if you're ready.
Sure.
This question is actually kind of following up Dave's questions. What was going on? The question from the listener is, I'm curious what else you learned from your communications. If this is a secret operation, is your sense that there is some malevolent intent? It seems like a very innocent thing to be kept top secret.
I never, during the entire time, the 2 years that I was communicating, I never once sensed any malevolence or anything like that. I honestly, the communications were so, although there was emotion on the peripheral of the communication, I could sense emotions of the whoever was on the other end, the alien. But as far as the communications themselves, it was very logical, and I didn't sense any type of threat or anything like that. It was just the opposite. I felt like they were kind of a caretaker situation, where they were concerned, not any type of violence or evil thoughts or anything like that.
Interesting.
So,
Well, extraterrestrials have been referred to as watchers, guardians, and some people believe that they are watching us to make sure that we don't ruin this planet or somehow make ourselves extinct. And some people say it's not even our planet; it belonged to them long before we even came along.
yeah.
So I've heard that. You mentioned something like this too in your book. You do ask if the alien that you're communicating with, you ask a few questions about time, religion, and you ask something about how long have you been visiting us? What did the alien tell you?
Well, they didn't give me any specific dates, but they said that that they had been intermingling with us for a very, very long time. That's the sense that I got anyway. And it's interesting because that correlates kind of with. Of course, I didn't know this at the time. It's been since then that I've learned all this. But the Basque people, they have a genetic anomaly in their genes that they can't really trace to anybody, to any specific race on Earth. And so it's just things like that kind of make you wonder. Well, it's very, very possible that they could have interbred with the human species. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Did you ask them any other questions?
One of the interesting things is about time.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, I asked them. Again, this wasn't a me ask then they answer. It was over time I got this concept. No pun intended. But one of the things that I got the impression of is one of the things that I asked was about. Can they go through time or backward in time or forward in time? Can they travel through time? And the answer I got was very interesting. He said that, and I wish I could put this into better terms, but this is what my interpretation was that he said that you can't go back or forward in time because time is relative. So you can't go forward from a certain time because that certain time is a relative time. It's not a static time. So it's impossible to go forward from something that's not static, because it's relative to something else. And he said that they do go around time though, and that's how they travel is using electromagnetic energy and time, and they manipulate it so that they go around time. Now, I didn't really understand that.
I don't either.
Still don't really understand that to any degree that would make much sense. But he says that they do go around time.
Well, is it possible that we just don't have the full understanding of time? I think it's only in the past few centuries that we've figured out, if not the past century itself, that the time can be slowed down and affected by gravity.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and one of the other things is he said that we don't fully understand our sun yet. He said at some point we will, but that the sun, our sun, is extremely. Well, I got the impression that he said that it was extremely interesting in that we don't fully understand it yet.
We don't. That's an interesting kind of little bomb to drop on you. That we don't fully understand our sun. What would that mean? That it could be much more, or we could use it much better. Like solar panels is not enough.
I wish I knew.
Oh, okay. No, it's it's interesting. There was. Michio Kaku did mention that a Type 1 civilization can use the power of its own planet. A Type 2 civilization actually could harness the power of its sun, I believe, and a Type 3 civilization can harness the power of its galaxy. It may be the other way around. It could be a Type 1 civilization uses the power of its sun, and a Type 2 civilization uses the power of its solar system. Mm-hmm. So maybe we're not there yet. We're kind of pumping oil out of the ground and kind of playing with windmills, and we may have some amazing new way of tapping into the sun that we're just totally ignoring or not even close to understanding. Interesting. Okay. We have more questions coming in, Dan.
Sure.
This is very interesting. After all this training and after you separated from the service, the question from the listener is, do you still have the ability to communicate with these beings?
Yeah, I don't believe that it ever goes away. It's just that the permission, so to speak, or the purview of my communications was under the auspices of the military and the project. And once I was relieved of duty from the project, at that point, I never received any other communication whatsoever. And I've tried to generate, tried to send, and nothing. There's nothing there. Absolutely nothing. So I was only authorized to do so under the project. It wasn't something that I can just, bring up at will.
Is that because of location, you think? Because you were in a specific chair, or do other people,
this has nothing to do with location.
What about the pills? Did they take the pills?
I wasn't taking them the full time anyway, so that wasn't really a make or break thing. I don't think so. The only conclusion that I can draw from this is that I was not authorized to do so outside of the program. Plain and simple.
You have another question here. Did they limit the degree of their answers to you because they expected you to have a limited technical ability to comprehend? Perhaps the conversation with someone like Stephen Hawking may have been more in depth. So yes, why? Well, that's debatable. I mean, how do we know that the aliens are not communicating with Stephen Hawking right now? He does know a lot, doesn't he? So,
that's true.
I don't know. I mean, what's he doing in that chair? That's interesting. But yes, do you think that they limited things, technical conversations with you because they were like, well, this guy may not get it anyway? Did you feel talked down to at all?
That's completely plausible. I don't ever remember. I don't think they limited their answers because they probably didn't care whether I would understand what they were saying or not. But the answers that I did get were not in-depth discussions. They were little snippets of, this, and then sign off. Yeah, this, and then sign off. And it wasn't like a 20-minute, conversation back and forth, me ask, they answer, me ask, they answer. I would get in a question and then they would say something, sometimes very cryptic in their answer, and that's it. They would just sign off. So what I did get was just gleaning information over time, and these are my impressions of what they were saying. The answer to the question is they could very well have done that, but I don't think it was purposeful on their part. I don't think they did a scan of my brain and said, okay, what can he understand and what he can't. I don't think they did that. I don't think they had the capability to do that. So,
okay. Well, another question here. What is the potential backlash, if any, for you coming out as a whistleblower?
Well, when I first did it, when I first wrote the book, I sent the manuscript to a site called ufomind.com. Okay. It was run by Glenn Reynolds. It was probably the biggest UFO-related, alien-related website on the internet at the time. And of course, the internet was just starting to take off then. And so I did that because I wanted to have an insurance policy. I told Glenn, I said, you have this. If anything happens to me, make sure it gets out. And then I started to do the publishing and get the book out itself. And then once it was out, it was out. Now, the problem with gray projects in general is that there's no proof. You can't get proof of what you're doing because of the way it's set up. There was no hard evidence that I can come out with. Even if I had brought one of those pills, which is basically the only hard evidence that I could have brought out had I wanted to, it's just a pill. Maybe if it had some magical properties to it that could have been analyzed, maybe. But what am I going to say? Here's a pill that makes me talk to aliens. So essentially, right. If they do it that way and they keep the evidence to the point where you can't get any, then when you do whistle blow, so to speak, you are part of the fringe crowd. There's no evidence. So it's a very, very effective system they have in place. Very effective.
The effect of ridicule, or the effect of having no evidence, so that when you do come out, you just sound like a nut.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, it's happened to a lot of people. I was actually in a disclosure conference in Washington, D.C., and you have very reputable people, pilots. My favorite was John Callahan, an FAA official, saying that, that he has real UFO knowledge, or knowledge of UFO events that the FAA knows about. But, when he comes out and says it, it doesn't go to the media or anything like that. Nothing really happens. It's just a guy just trying to tell the story, which is what you're doing here. And we all really do appreciate what you've done. I'm thinking now that it took a lot of courage for you to come out and do this. And is it because when you finally come out, it's better than being quiet? I mean, you could have just remained quiet about this and not done this.
Yeah, I was in a different mental space at that time. I was kind of mad, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, why would you do this?
Well, I was extremely mad because I had to get out of the military, and I really actually liked my military career, other than this episode that happened at the end of the 12 years. And I was told that I couldn't get out, and so, of course, the obstinate person in me said, yes, I will get out. And so I put in a plan in place to get out, and it wasn't a plan that I really was very proud of, but I was like, you're history now. I'm gone. So me releasing the program, or the story, was, yes, I wanted to puzzle the piece of the puzzle to get out, but I also wanted to stick it to him.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Understandable. You kind of had to suffer for this, and this was something you felt that the public should know. So I'm afraid we are out of time, everyone. And I want to thank you, Dan Sherman, for sharing this incredible experience with us. For people who want more information, check out his book at aboveblack.com. This is the termination of tonight's epic voyage. Thank you for joining us here on InceptionRadio.com. And this was my first time, so I hope I did okay. Thanks, everybody.
You did a great job, Pat.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Inception Radio Network and Epic Voyages for allowing all this to happen. Tune in next time. Be sure to join us next time with your host, Kevin Cook, for Epic Voyages. Until next time, I'm Pat Uskert on Inception Radio. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Please join us again next Monday evening for Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council's Epic Voyages. I'm Roger Peacock for Epic. Until next time.